This is my Tyne TSK skin on frame kayak, but the skin is in a bad state of repair, so it's got to come off and be replaced. Back in the old days you could buy a new one from the company, but you can't get them anymore, so we're going to go a different route and cover it with ballistic nylon. So as you can see, all the woodwork is in a pretty sorry state as far as varnishing goes. So when we take the skin off, it'll all be sanded down and get a fresh coat of varnish. So you've got a snail. All the brass is all gone, all green and mucky. And so what I did, I took each section out one at a time, sanded it all up, and then put it back. The whole boat didn't go to pieces, it was just taken to pieces in parts and then put back together. Once it was sanded, stained, varnished, and now this is the new covering, which is ballistic nylon. So there's loads of videos on YouTube about how to do this, but this, I wouldn't go by what I do here. This is just a quick sort of intro to how I did it. So there's much better videos showing you how to do this properly. But yeah, pin it down, stretch it out, which is really important to stretch it out. And I'd never done this before, but it was a good experience. I'd like to do it again. The only tricky bit is the sewing. So to cut the ballistic nylon, you don't want to use just a Stanley knife or anything like that, because the cut edges will fray. So you want to use something that's got a hot edge. So you can use a soldering iron. You can buy a special tool to cut nylon that'll heat it and then weld it back together as you cut it. But all I'm using is just a paint scraper. So I'm just heating up a paint scraper and a little camping stove, and it done the job brilliantly. Slow, but it done the job. I didn't fancy ruining a soldering iron. So I'm just trimming this off. So you trim off each flap with about a ½ inch of overlap. So when I bring the two edges together to sew them together, they'll have like a ½ inch overlap, and you just do, I think they call it a blanket stitch. So you're just doing a simple stitch. I say simple. The sewing was the only hard bit about this job, because you have got to get it so tight. You know, you won't. Yeah, you've got to sew this on very, very tightly. So there's a trick to that. So I'm now just sewing on the bow with one of them curved needles, and I think I used 200-pound break and strain fishing line for this, braided fishing line. So it's gonna hold. And obviously it's a bit awkward because you've got so much thread there, because you've got to do such a long seam, but you've also got them little push tacks that the thread has a habit of getting wrapped around when you're trying to pull your stitches through. So, but this is the easy part of the stitching. And so at the end, you want to just come past the end about 1 inch to create a little pocket, and you'll see why we need that when we've done the other end. But yeah, And so now you do exactly the same on the stern. So what you do, you release the bow, then you then do the stern about 2 inches shorter. So then when you try and pull it across, it's really tight. You'll see me try now. I'm now trying to pull it up. So remember, you've sewn this up 2 inches shorter. So you hear it pop into place. That is that's a bit tricky on your own. Could have done with another pair of hands then. And now flip her over. And now it's a case of just cutting the bow and stern decks. Again, you want a 1/2 inch overlap down the middle, so when you stitch it all together, you've just got that little bit of overlap there. And then to pull these two flaps together, this stitch, you kind of want to do it 3 or 4 inches from the edge of your cut, and you just put in a stitch each side 3 or 4 inches from the edge, and then maybe, I don't know, 5-6 inches apart, and then just go up along your join. And the point of this is you're then going to put a lot of tension on this big wide stitch that you put in before you actually sew up the seam, and without that you just can't pull the seam tight enough together. So it's very important. And each of these stitch holes that you put in, you want about 1/4 inch, because if you gather too little material together, you'll just pull the thread through. So you want about 1/4 inch of material, and a nice big wide stitch. In hindsight, I wish I'd have measured it out, because you do see this stitch when it's finished, and mine are not 100% equal, and that bugs me a little bit. It's nothing structural, you know, it's just purely aesthetics, but the fact that it's not symmetrical does bug me. So I wish I'd have planned that a bit better. But when you've stitched all the way up, you've then got to go back and pull it, start from the beginning, pull it tight and work your way along all the way to the end, tie that off, then go back to the beginning, pull it tight again, and you have to do that 4 or 5 times, and each time you just make it that bit tighter. So you think you've got it tight, but when you go back again, you can get another couple of inches out of it, and you have got to get this so tight. So what you're using is ballistic nylon, which you think is tight, but if it gets moisture in it, it will relax, and then you'll get wrinkles and it'll go saggy. So you have to get it so tight now so that it's not gonna get wet and get loose later. So once you've done that, you can then start doing the seam again. Just a simple, I think it's called a blanket stitch, simple blanket stitch, starting from the end and just work your way into the middle of the bow. And you should see that the material is wet. So you want the material wet. Again, you want it wet now, because then you've expanded the material. So as the material dries, it'll then shrink. And you've just, like I said, the stitching is the hard bit, because you've got to get this so tight. Which is why I've got the tape on my finger, because the thread is just cutting into my finger so much that I had to put tape on my finger. But keeping it wet is very important. I was using these little spray things at first, but it was so hot in the end I used a hose pipe, because the water just evaporates so quickly that in the end I just got a hose pipe. So with all that seam cut, and you've then got to fit the coaming to go around the cockpit, and then again you've then got to cut the nylon to suit your coaming, and then again we're wetting it down. And as you can see on the other edge in the front of the screen, you can see that white dashed line. That's the stitching going through the coaming and stitching the nylon on. But again, you stitch it on, but then you've got to go back 3 or 4 times and take all of the slack out of it. And it is it's amazing how much you can get out. And so what I'm using for this is a peg. So I've split a peg in 2, and I'm using the 2 wooden bits of the peg to feed through the stitch on the outside of the coaming, and then easing the peg back, which stretches the thread through, and just working it along. And each time you do this, again, you're going to gain a couple of inches of thread, which you can see is held on with the mole grips. So when we get to the end, I'll then pull the mole grips through, and you'll have a couple of inches of thread there, which you got there now. And so now just attach another set of mole grips so it can't go back in. And you've got to do that 4 or 5 times, all the way down each side to get that thread really tight. So with the boat finished, it's then a case of putting this 2-part waterproof stuff on. I don't know, some people call it a varnish, some people call it a resin. But it's a 2-part mixture which doesn't go like rigid, so it's still very flexible, and it took a long time to actually dry off. So it takes, even in the hot sun, it takes a long time for this stuff to dry. But yeah, apparently it is really good stuff. I imported a kit from America for the ballistic nylon and the 2-part resin coating. So with that dry and all the bits fitted, it's now the job of trying to get it outside, which, although this boat is very lightweight, so it's 15 foot long, 29-inch beam, and it weighs just over 40 pounds, so it's incredibly light for the size of the boat, but it's still bloody awkward. As you can see, trying to get it out, not good. Another pair of hands would have been ideal. Yeah, I wince every time I watch this bit. Like I say, it's not the sheer weight of it, because it's not that heavy, and putting it on your shoulders like this is a breeze. This is so easy to carry, unbelievable. But it was just awkward getting it in and out of the conservatory. That was a real pain. And there it is, finished. So it's got airbags. You know, it's got an airbag in the front and an airbag in the rear. I have added little foam matting, really just to protect the varnish when you're sort of standing and got your feet in there, but also give a little bit of comfort for your butt. But it wasn't enough. That really, I need a bit of foam for the seat, just to give you, because if you're out in it all day, it's a bit hard. The paddles, I restored the paddles as well. The tips, they needed replacing, so I bought some new veneer and put fresh veneer on the tips of the paddles, and obviously gave them plenty of coats of varnish as well. This is the first day out, and the collision.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. I couldn't even slow down.
Don't worry about it. It's alright.
So it paddles really well, but obviously 15 foot long. It tracks well, but it's not as manoeuvrable. It could do with a rudder. It did have a rudder before I got it. The person who had it before had a rudder, and they also had a sail. So it would be nice to have a sail and a rudder, but they didn't have it when I got this. So there you go. Very nice. Probably the only one like it.